Namaste. I'm Alakananda Ma, Ayurvedic doctor and principal of Alandi Ayurveda Gurukula, a unique apprenticeship style Ayurveda school in Boulder, Colorado, offering 2 and 4 year programs. So last week we talked about meat and Ayurveda, provided a lot of useful information for many of you. This week, for a counterbalance, I'm going to share a little bit of my journey about how and why I became vegetarian. After growing up, of course, on a typical British meat and potatoes, steak and kidney pudding, the whole deal, uh, how did I become vegetarian? My first attempt at becoming vegetarian, I was about 18 or 19. I was a young medical student and shared a lab bench with a student who was already 20 something. So, of course, I looked up to her, and she uh, was vegetarian. So I thought I should become vegetarian like her. That didn't last very long because I didn't actually know what vegetarians eat, and I got fed up of living on cheese on toast. Then in the mid 70s, two things happened. One, Diet for a Small Planet came out, and I read it, and the other, that I did my clinical elective on children's ward in Kilimanjaro Christian Medical Center in Tanzania, where every child that I admitted died of measles complicated by malnutrition. Where when I showed the slides, back in those days it was still slides, I showed the slides of my trip, and there were children who were so malnourished that my family couldn't see there was anybody in the hospital bed. So the combination of reading that book and actually seeing global inequality, food inequality in action gave me a feeling that every time I was eating meat, I was eating those children in Africa because I was taking resources that should have been used to produce grain for them instead of to produce meat for wealthy countries. So my first phase of becoming vegetarian was purely for socioeconomic reasons. I saw that eating meat, according to the arguments brought forth in Diet for a Small Planet, promoted global food inequality. And I was by that time old enough and a little more used to cooking, so I was able to figure out what vegetarians eat. And shortly after that, I joined a Cistercian abbey, and as an act of penance or asceticism, we abstained from meat. So we had a very nice diet, food that we grew in our own garden, and we didn't have any meat. We did have fish on special occasions. But for all this time, my becoming vegetarian had nothing to do with my love for animals, which I've always had. You can see photos of me feeding the pigeons in Trafalgar Square with such motherly love, feeding grass to a cow in my little pixie hood with such motherly love. I loved animals. Didn't quite make sense to eat them. But once I became vegetarian, my whole relationship with animals changed. The animal kingdom started reaching out to me. My heart opened to the animals as they opened to me, and there was no way going forward that I would eat them again. So now compassion and love for animals was added to the socioeconomic reasons why I was choosing not to eat meat. Of course, if it was nowadays and there was all the worries about climate change and animal husbandry, that would have been added to my socioeconomic reasons for not eating meat. So then, after my time in the abbey, making my novitiate, I ended up going to India, and there I discovered a whole new set of reasons to be vegetarian. I discovered the doctrine of ahimsa, of harmlessness, non-violence. I found out that my guru's disciples didn't eat meat. My guru didn't eat meat. At all the ashrams that I stayed at, we had vegetarian food. So now the spiritual reasons of pursuing the path of bhakti yoga were added to the compassion reasons and the socioeconomic reasons. So, all in all, that's a very short summary of a very long journey. I've never lost that special relationship with animals that came about from the first moment that I became vegetarian. To give a couple of examples, we were walking through the CU campus one day. It was before a game, and Ralphie, the mascot, was in an enclosure for people to see, and you were supposed to be able to go and pet her, but the handler said, she's having a rough day, you're not going to be able to pet her, but okay, I'll let you in the enclosure. I went in, and that massive beast walked over to me, laid her enormous head on my small shoulder, and completely relaxed. It was amazing. And another example I'll give is when we went to the wolf shelter up in the foothills, and I was told you can't go in that part of the shelter because the alpha male wolf is having a very bad day and you won't be able to go near him. And I wasn't afraid, so I gently opened the gate, and the alpha male wolf, who was having a bad day and snapping at everyone, walked up to me and did a deep bow. That was that. Just so many stories of how the animal kingdom reached out to me when I was no longer a predator for them. So happy meat eating according to my last video, and happy holidays if that's what's right for you. And if maybe moving towards vegetarianism is right for you, here were some good stories. And either way, remember, too much meat is bad for your heart health, and if especially bad for you if you're trying to prevent or treat diabetes. So even if you are eating meat, try to do a meatless Monday or only have meat once a day or cut back on the amount of meat that you do eat. Okay, happy holidays, everyone. Namaste.